Welcome. Firstly, thanks to the CTF committee for inviting me today. And secondly, I've finally found somewhere in Australia that's colder than Tasmania in the middle of summer. I'm just going to read through and tell you the story and our journey of the CTF. In the veggie industry in Australia, we're pretty slow at adapting to new ideas. But now, after 5 or 6 years down this path, we're a true believer. So I'll go through the story, and then I'll go through a series of photos. That's the Forth Valley. That out there is Bass Strait. So we've got about 130 hectares there of alluvial river flats, and I'll talk more about that. The main thrust of our business, though, is red rolling hills of the northwest coast of Tasmania, and that's what our area is sort of renowned for. But anyway, I'll read through and then we'll go through some of the photos. I just need my specs on. So Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon is a vertically integrated fresh vegetable growing, packing and wholesale distribution business based in Forth on the northwest coast of Tasmania. Approximately 40% of the produce packed and sold comes from the company's owned and operated farms, with the remainder supplied by contracted growers. The main vegetable crops are onions, carrots, broccoli, cauliflowers, cabbages and beans. Other crops include baby leaf spinach, pumpkins, beetroot and swedes. The company packs and ships 1,500 hectares of vegetables, which is equivalent to 50,000 tonnes each year to domestic and overseas markets. Harvest Moon crops are spread over four farms in two very different landforms: coastal alluvial river flats, which are likely to have a saturated profile for a significant part of the year, and well-drained red ferrocene soils in an undulating landscape. All crops are irrigated. Vegetable production is generally a high-traffic, intensive tillage business. Most vegetable crops are grown on ridges or beds, and therefore traffic is controlled during the growing season, even in the most basic systems. The traditional approach to soil management has been intensive tillage after harvest, usually deep ripping twice in a cross direction to achieve full breakout of compaction. This is followed by any number of other operations to boot the soil into a fine seed bed to accommodate seeding machinery that has no capacity for handling residue or clods. This was the approach to soil management at Harvest Moon until about 15 years ago. The CTF system journey. So the guidance was first used in 2003, allowing the start of seasonal controlled traffic farming, provided A and B lines were retained from year to year. In 2008, the decision was made to change from 1.2 to 2 metre track widths, primarily because it was possible to fit more rows per bed and plants per hectare for most crops at this stage. To us, that was a bit of a no-brainer. Basically, just wheel tracks alone, we reduced that by 8%, and with certain crops like brassicas, we gained another 22% plants per hectare straight up. At this stage, extensive whole of paddock tillage was still very much part of the system. Winter cover crops were added for organic matter. Winter cover crops for added organic matter have been a feature of that rotation since 2000, but often these required intensive tillage for incorporation. The real catalyst for change started back in around 2008, when both major retailers were at war with each other. The shift from utilising the wholesale markets to direct grower programs was taking place. All major growers were busy trying to secure supply contracts, and the writing was on the wall. Prices were really going to increase, and if anything, they would continue to decrease. With a high Aussie dollar, diesel nudging $2 and the cost of labour increasing, we knew we had to make fundamental changes to our business to stay afloat. To put it bluntly, we needed to dramatically cut costs and drive yield. And really, that's what we've been doing ever since. Even today, not much has changed on the market front. Sure, some years in some lines you may see a shortage of product, but in Australia we've all become exceptionally efficient producers of vegetables. We can grow enough in Australia to feed 50 to 60 million mouths. So when export is soft or we are not competitive, basically we kill our local Australian domestic market. Everything at Harvest Moon today is about stripping cost and driving yield. The change to 2 metre wheel width initiated a move to standard operating unit of 3 by 2 metre beds per pass. On the river flats, 6 by 2 metre beds became the basis for permanent solid set irrigation installation, which had the effect of confining traffic to fixed locations between the irrigation lines 13 metres apart. With permanent irrigation infrastructure, random traffic and cross-ripping became a thing of the past. Without the need to undo the damage of traffic compaction, bed maintenance became much simpler. Cover crop and residue management shifted from intensive powered tillage operations to a ground-driven Wilcox bed reformer imported from California. Strip till has recently been introduced for some crops, allowing cover crop residue to be kept on the surface of the beds. In one foul swoop, we changed our whole operation, moving from 1.6 metre wheel centres to 2 metres. We knew the cost would be big, but we also knew that productivity gains would be even bigger. The problem was, with 12 different vegetable lines, we had to do everything at once. The tractors were the easy part. We simply traded them all in. The biggest challenge in cost was changing 30 years' worth of implements, seeding and harvesting equipment. Fortunately, productivity gains were immediate. The controlled traffic system speaks for itself. Tractor hours are down by 30%, a combination of fewer and faster operations. Tractor size is reduced by over 50%, from 360 horsepower tractors to 150 horsepower. Implement maintenance has reduced. As a result, yield has increased, mostly due to improved irrigation control and management, along with improved soil conditions. A number of changes that have come together to make the system what it is today. However, it's not without its challenges. Farming a few metres above sea level on a fall of about 1 metre per kilometre and harvesting winter vegetables in a winter-dominated rainfall environment creates some challenges with drainage. However, soil repair is much easier with controlled traffic. The whole system of CTF and permanent irrigation now means we can grow high-value crops like baby spinach. This is a crop that requires lots of sequential plantings with light and regular watering. Other than spray tractors, no other tractor go into the crop, which potentially contaminate the leaf. In summing up, without a doubt, the CTF system has been an amazing turnaround to these river flats. It has now made us better farmers who reliably produce a whole raft of high-end crops week in, week out. The ground continues to get better and better and easier to prepare. Yields continue to rise for all crops, and we're proud to say we continue to trim production costs and grow our margins, which is what it's all about. So I'll just go through some of the tractors. So back in, I don't know, the 90s and the 2000s, it was like a competition, who could have the biggest tractor. So that was a common, a 360 horsepower tractor, pulling a whole raft of implements, power harrows, rotary hose, big set of discs. Now we've gone back to smaller 140, 150 row crop tractors. Some of the rippers we used to use to cross-rip and just rip the shit out of everything. Now we've just got purpose-built bed rippers, 3 times per bed, and really half the time you don't need those. Here's the shed that we rarely use nowadays. You can see all the power harrows and rotary hose that we continually used to pound our ground. Now, I found this machine in California about 5 years ago. We've got a custom built for our beds. Basically, it's what we call a bed renovator. It's taking that baby spinach that's been harvested, one pass with that, ready for the next pass. There's another custom built bed former. So what we're trying to do is we're just trying to eliminate the amount of power passes per year. Once upon a time, as I said, we would have anything up to 8 or 9 passes of machinery to get a paddock ready. Now we're doing it in 3. We've got the Wilcox, we've got the bed ripper, and then we've got this machine here. The Wilcox machine is just a series of wavy discs, which is great. You know, it runs at 10, 12 kilometres an hour. As I said in the past, we were running with offset discs, rotary hose, and we were just continually pounding our ground. This machine here has been a real game changer for us. As I said, here's some of the irrigation sprinklers we've got in place. Everything's in 13-metre lines. Cheap to run, game changer. Here's the bed rip patient. Is that you and me? Again, super easy to pull. You know, the little 140 horsepower tractors are doing it easy compared to 360 horsepower, you know, cross ripping and trying to rip the guts out of all the wheel tracks we had from the discs and all the other movements we had. Again, another game changer. Look, really half the time, you know, we don't even run the rippers through it because there's no compaction on any of the beds because all the machinery stays in those wheel tracks. That's just another series of how the ground's coming up now. It's just a beautiful seedbed for spinach. So here's the spinach seeder. I'll just go through the process of spinach. Here's the spinach growing. The harvest process, again, every tractor keeps to its wheel tracks. So just going back to the spinach, the industry standard, they talk in spinach because it's such an intensive little crop. The industry standard, they talk to the holy grail of 2 kilograms per metre. We're getting 3 reliably, week in, week out. Some of the challenges we've got, as I said, the main part of our operation is on these red rolling hills of the northwest coast. It really doesn't show you how steep that paddock is, but in Tasmania, we view that tractor companies put seat belts in to stop you from hitting the cab, the front windscreen. That's how steep some of our paddocks are. So our next real challenge is trying to adopt CTF on these paddocks, and that's a typical shot of the northwest coast of Tasmania. There is not a flat paddock in sight other than those river flats where we farm. Trying to adopt CTF on this undulating topography is a real challenge. So it's just another photo of the conventional system at the moment with, you know, big power harrows, big tractors. Again, we cross-rip the guts out of everything. Another challenge we've got is a lot of our machinery. I'll go back, that's a 3-row carrot harvester. Now, trying to adopt that into a 2-metre CTF system is just a bloody hard work. You got these machinery manufacturers that just don't want to know you know what you want to do. This is how it is. This is what you're going to get, and that's it. Bean harvest are the same. You know, you do all this bloody great work on CTF systems, and then these harvesters come in and stuff it all up. But you know, this is our next challenge that we're going through at the moment. I mentioned strip till. Now, obviously, strip till system's been around for years and years and years, but as I said, we're pretty slow in the veggie industry. As I said, we're traditionally, you know, multi-combinations of powered implement, and we're just, you know, killing our structure. So in the last 2 or 3 years, we've done a lot of work on strip tilling with certain crops, so all the brassicas, so broccoli, collie, cabbage. We're using it on pumpkin, and now this year we've been using it on all our bean crops. Front mounted fert tank, blowing the fert back, and basically that's broccoli. So again, getting great results, not pounding the crap out of our ground. But yeah, the real challenge, the next real challenge is turning that sort of country into true CTF. Anyway, that's my journey. Thank you.